There it is. We are recording. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Glad you could make it tonight. Taking time to attend to our inner lives is, I think, in this day and age is essential for our survival. Seems like the stresses and the complexity of the world are not slowing down in the least. So I thought to begin tonight, I would read just a brief poem by Donna Falls. Some of you may be familiar with this. It's titled Self-Observation Without Judgment. Release the harsh and pointed inner voice. It's just a throwback to the past and holds no truth about this moment. Let go of self-judgment, the old learned ways of beating yourself up for each imagined inadequacy. Allow the dialogue within the mind to grow friendlier and quiet. Shift out of inner criticism and life suddenly looks very different. I can say this only because I make the choice 100 times a day to release the voice that refuses to acknowledge the real me. What's needed here isn't more prodding towards perfection, but intimacy, seeing clearly and embracing what I see. Love, not judgment, sows the seeds of tranquility and change. Love, not judgment, sows the seeds of tranquility and change. And I just wanted to share a little bit to start tonight. This is out of a workbook I used to use, Mindfulness workbook, and it's nicely laid out. And the first section talks about living on autopilot versus living with conscious awareness and choice, kind of one of the core teachings, but is fundamental to seeing that the solid sense of self, which is usually based in a story of me, language-based, memory-based, is not that solid, really. It's quite flexible, and it changes a lot according to what situation you're in. And if we look deeply in contemplative practice, we can touch a quality of awareness that is underneath thought and thinking. So this story of me kind of disappears, and we enter into an experience of the now, present moment awareness, which many describe as a place of love, connectedness, wholeness, compassion, and many other words. You might call it God, Holy Ghost, Christ consciousness, Brahman, Buddha nature, and so forth. So there's this, quality of awareness that we're most accustomed to, which often we call the doing mode. And I'll give a little definition to this doing mode, this mental, cognitive, rational thinking mode that typically occupies our awareness most of the time. So doing mode versus being mode. We'll start with doing mode. In doing mode, we live on automatic pilot much of the time. We drive, we walk, we eat, even speak without clear awareness of what we're doing. We're being fairly automatic. Doing starts up automatically whenever there is a mismatch between where we are now and where we want to be. So it's that experience of oftentimes we're in the midst of doing something while we're planning the next thing to do. And maybe in doing that, we're going to get the newspaper and we're thinking of something else. We lay the newspaper down, and when we're in 5 minutes, we go, where did I put the newspaper? Because we weren't even present to get in the newspaper. We were somewhere else. So focusing narrowly on our goals, we rarely stop and notice the wonder of what is happening around us as we move through our lives, that present moment experience. We can end up missing much of our lives, forever postponing the time when life will be less hectic and we'll really notice things again. So that's kind of a definition of this doing mode. I'm sure that sounds somewhat familiar to people. And this is the definition that where this is the quality of awareness that becomes more common as we cultivate mindful presence. and stability of attention in the moment. This is called the being mode. The being mode is intentional rather than automatic. Intentional rather than automatic. This means we can choose what to do next rather than run on old, worn out habit patterns. This allows us to see things as if for the first time. We re-inhabit the present moment and become fully conscious of our lives. Being brings a freshness to our perception. We become fully alive and aware again. And I'm just going to read the intro to this because it's written so well. I thought I'll convey it more quickly than me rambling with my explanation. So we begin, it says, why do we get locked in a struggle and why can't we win? Rumination can cause us enormous difficulties, and this is this doing mode personified. Rumination can cause us enormous difficulties. It can transform the simple experience of a fleeting emotion of sadness into serious depression, or a fleeting emotion of irritation into a prolonged sense of indignation and anger, or a fleeting moment of concern into a deep sense of anxiety. So why do we do it? Why do we ruminate, brood, and worry when far from accusing us from destructive emotions, this actually makes things worse? To answer these questions and to help us understand how we might begin to respond differently, let's step back and look briefly at the way the mind works more generally. So the doing mode of mind. To solve a problem or to get things done, the mind usually works in certain predictable ways. Take, for example, a day when you have to take a detour from your usual drive home to drop off a package at a friend's house. But you find yourself driving past the point where you meant to turn off at his or her street. After a few moments, you notice the package is still there and realize that this is not what you had intended. You think back, I should have taken the other turn. You think forward, what shall I do next? So we're in doing mode here. You work out the simplest way to sort things out is to turn around and make a deliberate effort this time to turn off at the exit to your friend's house and not just drive straight past as you normally would. You act on these plans, take the right route, and deliver the package to your friend. The package eventually arrived at its destination through your mind's use of a well-rehearsed and familiar mental route. This route helps us get things done. This doing mode is really important. It helps us achieve goals, solve problems, and change things to make them more like we want them to be. We call this the doing mode of mind. And you'll find its core features listed below here. Some of these include, these are the 7 core qualities of doing mind. It often comes online automatically. 2, it uses thoughts and ideas, holding them in the mind as you work. 3, it dwells in the past and the future to help you get where you want to be. 4, it keeps in mind what to avoid where you don't want to end up. 5, it needs things to be different. It's forever focusing on the gap between where you are and where you want to be. 6, it takes thoughts and ideas as real. It says it would not be useful to keep doubting your destination, so we have to believe in it. 7, left to itself, it continues to focus on the goal until the task is complete or until you are tired and depleted to continue. The demands of the doing mode can be quite harsh and unkind. And they go on to say that to work effectively at each point of the doing mode, we have to hold this in mind and then compare these three ideas. So first, where are we at this moment, the current state? Where you want to be, your destination or goal. And three, where do you want to be and the outcome of that goal? So you have the current state, the desired outcome, and then the outcome that you want to avoid. So those are the three qualities of it. I'll pause there just for a minute. Any questions at this point? It's a lot of information. Are you starting to get a sense of the doing mode, that it's very, very much based on past experience and projects those past experiences into the present moment to achieve a goal? The challenge with that is, especially, this is useful in probably your day-to-day business life or cooking a meal or driving your car. You kind of use memory to, know how to do things. Where it's not so effective is especially in interpersonal relationships. Because what happens, I imagine many of us have experienced this, it's easy in our interpersonal relationships to relate to something that's said to us, which then automatically connects to past experiences with this person, or connects to experiences that are maybe similar to this moment. And we can quickly make assumptions based on that memory and project that onto the present moment as the truth of that moment. And the danger with that, we all know, is that we make a lot of assumptions that are probably much of the time are incorrect. I do this all the time, where I see a facial expression on somebody and I think, oh, what did I do? And sometimes I don't ask. And then I had this happen recently and I thought it was something I did. And then the next day I asked and it had nothing to do with me. And I did a whole bunch of things to try to make things better. And it wasn't, anyhow, the flowers were appreciated. I'll say that. The person didn't know why I got the flowers, but the flowers were appreciated. So we can, the being mode is really critical in how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others, because it's less judgmental. It tends to be more curious, more kind, and just more open to possibilities. So I'll pause there again. Any questions? So go ahead, Judy.
At the end of your lecture, you said something about, what is it I want to avoid?
Let me say a little more about it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that took me by surprise.
Yeah, there's the three qualities that we hold in mind in the doing mode. One was where you are at each moment, your current state, where you want to be, your goal or your desired outcome. And then the third one is where you don't want to be, what you want to avoid. So we both have, we have a goal, and of course, we want to avoid any obstacles that might get in the way of that goal. So of course, that can create a whole cascade. We'll have 7 different plans or 7 scenarios of obstacles that might come up in achieving our goal, so we're prepared. We can get lost in over preparation. And I used to be into that. It's like I was into futurism and future forecasting. We love to try to create scenarios to anticipate everything. And there can be some value to that, but it can be overdone. And especially in our personal life, we can spend more time planning than actually living, experiencing something that we might enjoy. And of course, that can create stress, the whole process of planning and thinking of all the things that could go wrong. I don't imagine brings a lot of relief to us. Now, maybe the multiple scenario plans give some sense of, well, I'll be ready. But then, of course, reality happens, and the 7 plans were great, but the plan 8 is what happened. So you didn't have that scenario. So then you beat up here on yourself for not having enough. I should have done one more scenario plan. Then I would have been safe. So I'll share a little more here. So why do we get locked in this struggle that we can't win? Okay, let's move ahead for that. And then we'll move into this. So if doing is so useful, what's going wrong in this situation? Why, if it's so useful in getting things done and achieving areas in my life or goals in my life, why change anything? And it says, if you want to achieve goals by making changes in the world around us, like building a house, the doing mode of mind is an effective approach, just like I said. So it makes sense that the mind turns to the same basic strategy when we want to achieve goals in our inner personal worlds. Goals like feeling happy, not feeling anxious, being a spontaneous person, or not being someone who gets depressed. It is here when things go wrong, when we use the doing mode. For now, there is a major difference. To solve problems, the doing mode has to hold in mind the idea of where we are, where we want to be, and where we don't want to be. To work at all, these have to be held at the back of the mind at all times until the problem is solved or let go of. So it's a lot of stuff to hold on to. For external problems like driving to a destination, holding these ideas in mind does not itself affect the distance left to travel. But what about those times when the goal is internal, to be happy, or not to have certain unwanted feelings, or not to be a certain kind of person? Remember how the doing mode works? Now we have to hold in mind, I'm unhappy. I wish I were happier. I don't want horrible feelings to come back. What happens now? So this is a little exercise. I hate to put you through this, but bear with me. So I'm going to repeat these phrases. I did not like doing this, but we're going to say these phrases 3 times. And just notice, if you even want to close your eyes, see how it affects you. So this internally saying these phrases as I speak them out. I'm unhappy. I wish I were happier. And I don't want these horrible feelings to come back. I'm unhappy. I wish I were happier. I don't want these horrible feelings to come back. I'm unhappy. I wish I were happier. I don't want these horrible feelings to come back. How many were uplifted by those wonderful statements? And that's what the mind does. And it's a weight. Our internal dialogue can be very critical like that. So it says, what was your experience? You probably felt worse, and most people do when we have this internal dialogue. The gap between where you are now and where you want to be just got bigger. So you're amplifying it. It's not just the ideas held in the mind that cause problems, it is comparing them. Sometimes the mind can see what's going on and just let go of the project to get rid of unwanted feelings altogether. At other times, the mind feels compelled to continue. If we've known many times when sadness has led us to depression, there will be an understandable fear of unhappiness. We'll find a need to avoid experiencing unhappiness at all costs. And that way, we believe, will prevent ourselves from slipping back yet again into the depths of emotional turmoil. Here, the mind just cannot let go. It will feel like we need at all costs to get rid of negative feelings. This is where the doing mode becomes the driven doing mode. And we move into rumination. This will be the end of the presentation here. Rumination or ruminative worry is just one form of the driven doing mode. The mind redoubling its efforts to apply the power of the doing mode to a problem to which it is tragically unsuited. Rumination turns to the doing mode to fix sadness and unhappiness because this pattern of mind really does work very well when we have to get things done in the external world. But when it comes to fixing what is going on in our internal worlds and what we see as me, rumination and doing backfire disastrously. So what can we do instead? There are 2 key steps to responding more skillfully. Learning to recognize ruminative worry and driven doing as they arise in our moment-by-moment experience and to see them for what they are. They're an old habitual pattern. And then 2, we learn we're cultivating an alternative mode of mind that allows us to respond more skillfully to sadness, unhappiness, and other unpleasant emotions and unwanted inner experiences. And then the cliffhanger, we'll talk about those modes at the next class. So next time around, we'll get into the being mode and how we cultivate that in our mindfulness work and our emotional balance work as well. So I'll pause there. And maybe what I will close with this being mode again, just that's what we'll be working on next time around. And then we'll have some discussion and go into practice. So the being mode again, which is what we'll cover in 2 weeks, is intentional rather than automatic. This means we can choose what to do next rather than run on old, worn out habits. This allows us to see things as if for the very first time. We re-inhabit the present moment and become fully conscious of our lives. Being brings a freshness to our perception. We become more alive and aware again. So I felt that was worth sharing. Some of you have heard this message before, but it does clarify these 2 modes of interacting with the world and how the doing mode is so appropriate to many of the tasks we do in our life, but when we deal with our inner life and our relational life, it's not the right tool. Because the relational world, our inner world is so complex, it's always changing, it's always new, and to use old patterns to try to understand it fully in the moment, we miss the mark so often. So any questions, comments? Are there times when in the midst of, especially an interpersonal interaction, that doing mode comes up where we want to launch into advice giving? When the person does anybody know these 3 modes of interpersonal interaction? One is a person wants to just be listened to. One, maybe they want some advice, but and there's a third. There's a third mode. Does anybody know that? There's yet another. Maybe they want you to leave them alone. I don't know. But there is a third mode. And so often that doing mind, and I think I'm being a little stereotypical, but I think men are probably worse in this than women, tend to want to jump to a solution. Oh, I know the answer to that problem. I can give you the advice to solve it. And we know that if we give people enough space to speak, oftentimes we solve our own problems, if we can call it a problem. We solve the dilemma, the challenge that we're faced with. And if we just sit on our hands long enough, the other person will get more insight than us probably jumping in. But anyhow, so that's a small example. Do anybody else have an example of where doing mode? I like that saying, ready, fire, aim. And that's a lot of people just dive in before thinking. And that's definitely the autopilot zone.
I found, and Regina actually did some training with me on this because I was always trying to help my son fix his problems. And he's at an age where he doesn't need me to do that. But and Regina pointed out to me very interestingly that implicit in too much advice giving, even if it's coming from a place of love, is the idea that we are saying to the other person, you don't know how to fix your problem yourself. We know better than you, even if that's not what and there is a part of that. It's like, oh, I do know. So I took that real seriously, and it's helped my relationship with my son because and it's even allowed me to step back and go, you know what? He probably does know how to fix it. It's just sometimes we all need to complain, or we just need that solace. So after a while, I started to realize that the biggest gift I could give my son was just to breathe on the phone, just to be present. And, if he asked me something, but yeah, and that's been a real transformative realization, is that people do oftentimes just need to be listened to and that too much advice giving makes them feel like, there's something wrong with them, that you think that they aren't capable. So.
Sure, thank you. Any other comments, reflections?
Well, I like that one. One group that I work with is the current group. And so when we meet in our circle, we hold space for each other. So if we've got a poem that we're opening or there's a topic, people can respond or not respond. But when you respond, it's not a discussion. So everyone else is holding space for you. So there is a support, but it's in silence. And there's a freedom in that. And the other thing is that it allows you to learn from your own inner teacher, which is another thing that we work on. And then the other thing I remember, which I use, is I think one of the first courses I took from Eric with Christy, we were learning how to listen. And so I think you had us keep our focus in the present moment by being aware of our bodies. Okay, so so you can do a body scan to keep yourself with the person, but you're not responding because you're trusting them, and they're realizing that they are trusted to consult their own inner teacher, to share with you, because often when you're talking your way through something, you figure it out if someone's giving you the space to do that. So I kind of really appreciate that.
You make an interesting point. Maybe think of something I learned a while back. Is Donald Rothberg, a teacher that I know, talked about in interpersonal, and some call it insight dial or interpersonal mindfulness. If you find yourself really getting caught in the mind, to like you have your hand on your leg or something, or the sense of sitting in your chair, to come into the body, sense of body awareness in the midst, or even when you're speaking too, if you're feeling like you're going to get emotionally overwhelmed or anger, some strong emotion is going to come up, having a subtle awareness of the body simultaneously keeps you grounded in a larger context. Because when we're in our thought, we're not connected to our body very much. And if we're disconnected from our body, we're not connected to the emotional state. We're not stable in the body. So there's a whole wisdom around being in the body that I haven't studied that much, but I think the body scan, and I do a lot with, contact, body awareness, and inviting the body to soften and relax. And we'll do that in just a minute, because the quieter the body is, the mind tends to follow. If the body is agitated and unpleasant and stressed, the mind tends to be pretty busy. So this mind-body connection is really powerful. And you made me think of that one. And I think, when we're just listening intently to somebody, that gives there's a certain form of embodiment there that, who knows, on a subtle level, maybe the other person is picking up that you're really there, you're really present, and your mind isn't spinning around. And, I think people feel that if there's a real deep connection and a deep listening going on, it allows a person to open up and to get grounded in their experience as well. Did you have anything?
I do that with my student too. I do we have a morning circle, and that's so strange.
Are you flashing in and out?
Hey, Eric.
We're students here. Yes.
I don't know if you can go in. I tested that, and if you're on green screen and virtual, it makes it worse, actually.
No, we're not at grade screen.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
No, but like Shelley said, I do it with my students as well, and I'm teaching them how to just be quiet and wait to listen to the other student. And I do have some parapro that's in there, and sometimes the student takes a long time to think about what she's going to say, and the parapro is like looking at me like, okay, you're gonna move this on? No, we just wait until that kid either wants to pass or says, what he or she needs to say. And the kids are doing, at this time of the year, the kids are doing a great job with it now. Yeah.
What grade do you teach?
Third grade.
Okay.
They can start at a pretty young age too. You know, you just have to train them. What does it sound like? What does it look like? Yeah.
That's an amazing skill to teach kids to have enough patience to pause and allow people that process
Mhm.
differently, not always the high-speed people that always kind of dominate, but to give that space, because oftentimes those people that internally process
Mhm.
have a lot that they can share, but they just
It
need the
takes a little
space.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. There's
Well,
hope.
I think your lecture's interesting on one thing, because I think right now, being a parent of a now young adult, John's 18, and our dynamic as a parent-child thing is changed. And trying to remember at times when you're communicating with him to stop and listen to what he's saying, as opposed to the parent role where I've got a problem, fix it. Now, as an adult, you have it's I almost feel like at times I have to stop, remind myself that he has to learn as an adult now how to deal with these adult things that he's going to be confronted with. And so it is stop listening to him. Kind of interesting to watch as he's maneuvering his way through it. That is an entirely different role than I've had for the 17 years that I had before he hit his 18th birthday. And it seems like it's a never-ending process of having to remind myself, let him learn, just listen to him, give him more freedom to learn, as opposed to just jumping in and saying, well, this is what I think you should do, or this is what you should do, and giving advice that may not be wanted or needed. So that doing role seems to want to kick in real fast.
Yeah. There's probably a certain level of safety when we share our advice, because we go, that's what I would do. That will make me feel good. You know, if they do what I would do, then all will be well.
Yep.
You know?
Or it makes me feel better because, you know, look how skilled or smart or I've lived longer than you have, or whatever it is that you want to perceive. And at 18, you're kind of also going through the roles of looking at your parents like they know absolutely nothing. And so as the parent, you want to still have that feeling like I'm not an idiot. But you know, that too shall pass, hopefully.
Right.
So
any other reflections on how in your own life you relate to this doing versus being mode, and the value of being able to just be present to this moment without having to be lost in the future of the way it should be, or regret about the past, but just be present to what is, and with an open heart, open mind?
Well, for me, the doing, oh, I'm sorry, is somebody else trying to talk? Maybe I'm getting feedback. I'm so fearful about the future. And I think as parents, sometimes we're fearful for our kids. We want to make sure they're not hurt or whatever. But I'm really motivated to being afraid of something bad happening. And so so for me, the doing is a way of trying to feel safe.
Mhm.
And as long as I'm, figuring out every scenario, and I think you alluded to that at the beginning, Eric, you talked about that, and it even happened today that then this thing that I was really in high level fixing in planning last night, then news came through that all of that was irrelevant. And it dawns on me that in all the fixing that I did, and I can sit there and I can go, okay, well, that was great because everything turned out right. But what could I have been doing with my time if I hadn't been trying to fix, things that didn't exist? I'm beginning to wonder if I can let go of all that fear and just get into acceptance. It could free me up to have time to do other things than to worry and plan. So I'm this was very dramatic today. And I'm like, wow, I spent probably 5 hours worrying yesterday, and I could have maybe done some really positive, fun things or productive things for other people or whatever. So I'm beginning to think that dysfunctional doing mode is really preventing me from doing things that could be better. And it's taking time.
Good.
Anyway.
Any other comments before we move it? Yeah. Before we move it.
I guess I'm very fortunate. I don't feel like I have a personality that is worry. I don't worry about the future. If I do find myself encountering something that I worry about, I tell myself I'll deal with whatever comes my way. And I do think that worry is a very wasted, useless effort. I think we'll bring our skills and our wisdom to the situation as it comes. I also believe that thoughts attract what you're thinking about. If you think about don't fall, I don't like it when people say don't fall, don't fall. Whoa, what do you hear? Fall, fall. So I say stay upright, be mindful when you're walking, and word it in a positive way.
Yeah, that's great.
There's so many things we can do with our speech and our thoughts and affirmations to keep us on track to control those habits that creep in, the doing habits that are not very beneficial to our development.
Yeah, I think that habit of self-criticism, that poem I started with at the beginning, to extend when self-criticism comes up, if we can cultivate the kind of the habit of meeting self-criticism with kindness and go, oh, there's my judgmental mind that wants to, keep me from having some pain or suffering, but knowing that that's actually increasing the suffering. And I can just come back to the moment and say, it is okay, whatever is here, how can I work with it? And that's that whole thing of trying to make this moment match what my internal perception thinks it should be, when this moment is the only way it could be. It couldn't be any different. My wishing it to be different isn't going to change it. So that resistance to the moment, which is so easy to have, creates a lot of our suffering. That's kind of the equation of, we have pain, our resistance to the pain will amplify our suffering. So the resistance part is what we have some control over. So the less we resist, the more we open to, especially the unpleasant, and see it for what it is. It allows us to move forward in a more wise way. Any other final comments?
Yes, Eric. Yes, Eric, it is because of your teaching and what you have said that I've been listening to for a couple of years, that I have been learning sometimes to say, hey, wait a minute, check on yourself. Why are you doing this at this point? You know better than this. You have other tools at your on hand. Use them. Switch a little bit. I thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm working on that too. My tool of using chocolate chip cookies to overcome boredom or stress, the way to overcome it is I try not to buy them in the first place, and then I'll have an orange, and that satisfies me a little bit better, and I feel healthier afterwards. So anyhow, Judy, did you have anything, or you're all set? Okay. Well, are people ready to do a little bit of practice? Move into some practice? Okay. And I think if you want to mute, it looks like everybody's pretty much muted anyhow. So, all right. So for the next about 25, 30 minutes, I'll be walking us through, starting with some body awareness, body scan practice, and then moving into some breath awareness work. And that'll probably be followed by a little bit of visualization perhaps. And then we'll probably close with a short loving kindness practice. So for you, those of you on Zoom, I don't think you're going to hear this bowl. I think you hear a tink when I hit my singing bowl, but we'll enjoy it here for those of us that are live in the space. So we'll be entering into a practice that is really all about the being mode. And in the midst of coming into the present moment, this being mode, guess what? The doing mode will pop up over and over again and take us off into the past or the future. And that's fine. That's normal to have that happen. So as we cultivate present moment awareness, we're really learning to rest in what's arising in the body. We're doing exercises to help stabilize attention and bring the body into a place of rest, which helps the mind, the thinking, the doing mode to slow down, but oftentimes it'll pop up here and there. And we just meet that with curiosity. We notice it and we come back to this present moment practice, whatever we're working with. So let's just begin by taking 3 slow deep breaths. Just inhaling fully and softening and relaxing on the exhale. So at your own pace. Inhale through the nose and soften and exhale as you exhale through the mouth. And as we begin, just getting in touch with your intention. Why do you come to this practice? Why do you take time to develop these skills of present moment awareness and compassion? What is it that underlies that wish, that desire to come to this work, come to these practices? And then next, just letting go of any specific outcome for the practice tonight. Whatever happens, happens. So there's a deep allowing and acceptance of mind, thoughts, emotions, body sensations. We're not pushing anything away. We're not holding on to the pleasant, pushing away the unpleasant. We're just allowing it all to flow through the mind and the body, unimpeded, meeting it with openness and kindness. And then just noticing anything that may be weighing on the mind, something that might be a distraction that's heavy on the mind right now or up in the mind. Notice that, acknowledge it, and let it know that it's important and you'll work with it. But for now, that distraction, that heaviness can relax and take a break for the next half an hour. It gets a chance to rest. And you'll get back to that later on. You won't abandon it in any way, but it can rest and relax right now. So in a way, as we enter the practice, there's nothing really to accomplish. There's no place to get to, and there's no problems to solve. This is just an open space to just rest in the depths of our awareness, of that pure, open-hearted awareness at the core of our being. And just beginning now, bringing attention. So we'll start with a practice to help stabilize attention, to relax the mind and the bodies, so that there's a bit less mind wandering, a little less doing mode. And we can do that by coming into the present moment by just noticing the sensations of the feet, contacting our shoes, the shoes on the floor on the earth. And just noticing the sensations there in the bottoms of the feet, the toes, the ball, the arch, the heel. Temperature, pressure, sensation, whatever's there, just noticing the coming and going of sensations in the feet. I sometimes talk about when we're in this practice, we will notice the foreground of our attention will be on the object of our attention right now, the feet. And simultaneously, the background awareness is open and spacious. We're not trying to shut anything out. So we may hear sounds, maybe thoughts that flow by, but we just allow them to be there in the background. No need to attend to them, get caught up in them, but there's no need to push them away either. So the foreground attention just resting in the feet. The background awareness is open and spacious. So bringing that foreground attention up through the legs, the calves, the knees, the thighs, up into the hips. And just noticing the sensations of the sits bones now on the chair. And just inviting the hips and the thighs, the lower legs and feet, soften, soothe, and rest. Soften, soothe, and rest. And any experience of pleasantness right now, just taking that in and feeling the joy of that. Sending that joy into the whole body. Just being present to this moment of awareness of the body. Bringing the attention up through the back, the lower back, the middle back, the ribs, the shoulder blades, the tops of the shoulders. Just sensing into the entire back and hips. Just resting. Just resting. Bringing attention into the front of the body, the abdomen, the ribs, the chest. You might notice the sensation of the rise and fall of the abdomen and the chest as we inhale and exhale. And just inviting the whole upper body to soften, soothe, and rest. The hips, the back, shoulders, the abdomen, the chest. Soften, soothe, and rest. And just bringing attention up into that left shoulder, dropping the attention down through the left arm into the left hand. Just being with sensations in that left hand. And bring the attention up the left arm over into the right shoulder, dropping down the right arm into the right hand. Soften, soothe, and rest. Soften, soothe, and rest. Bring that attention up through the right arm, back up into the shoulders, and sensing into the back of the neck, the sides of the neck and the jaw, front of the neck and the throat, the tongue. And just inviting the whole, the jaw, the throat, the neck, shoulders to soften, soothe, and rest. Soften, soothe, and rest. And again, just inviting the jaw to soften, maybe the teeth, if they're clenched, just allowing them to open up a bit. Tongue can be gentle and at the base of the mouth, just resting. Inviting the chin, the cheeks, the lips, around the nose and eyes, brow and forehead to soften, soothe, and rest. And just letting go of any subtle contractions of the muscles in the face, the eyes, the forehead, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. Soften, soothe, and rest. And now we'll shift the object of attention to the breath. And just again, noticing sensation of air as it passes through the nose. If that's not natural for you, or if you have a little different practice, if you notice the breath in the belly, that's fine as well. But the nose can be helpful, especially when we're quite relaxed. It's a little easier to notice the subtle movements of the breath as we inhale and exhale through the nostrils. So again, we're just being with the sensation as the air flows in and out of the nose with each inhale and exhale. You might notice a subtle temperature change as you inhale and exhale. You might notice warmth or coolness, temperature, moisture, or sensation arises in your own experience as we inhale and exhale through the nose. And as we move into the practice, let's take a moment now to count 5 consecutive breaths, just silently counting 1 on the inhale, and then 2 on the next inhale, and just being with the sensation of the breath all the way in and all the way out, and counting 5 breaths, and then we'll just go back to the sensation of breath in the nose. And again, just pausing for a moment in any quietude or peace or pleasantness that you might experience, this opening to that joy, that pleasantness, and allow that to just kind of bring in a inner smile to your heart, to your mind, to your body. Just the joy of being present and open and spacious. And just acknowledging that this, touching into this quality of quietude amidst the busyness that also pops up at times. But this quality is something that is available to us, especially in challenging times, and we can connect to this more and more often to bring equanimity and contentment into our life. Just resting in this awareness of the breath. Coming back to the sensation of the breath in the nose. Perhaps noticing the beginning of the in breath, the beginning of the out breath, still following the breath all the way in, all the way out. Just being very attentive to the moment by moment sensation of the breath in the nose. Just resting. Now just opening the attention to the whole of the body. So there's no specific object of attention. We're just allowing the body itself to be the guide to wherever attention is drawn. It may be a pleasant sensation, it may be an unpleasant sensation, or maybe the mind isn't even naming it in that way, it's just a different vibration. You might be drawn to the breath, you might be drawn to different contact points of the body, or you might just be open and spacious with the whole of the body. Just being in the space of nothing to do, nowhere to go, and no problem to solve. Just awake and aware of the body. Again, whatever sensation is prominent, we can rest with that, or just rest with the whole of the body, just allowing attention to be drawn naturally by the sensations in the body as they come and go. Just resting. There's sleepiness, drowsiness coming in to awareness. Your eyes are closed. You can raise the eyes just a little above horizon line, which will give you a little more energy. If there's a lot of busyness, the doing mind is coming in a bit, we can look down slightly below horizon to help calm the nervous system. Otherwise, it's continuing with nothing to do, nowhere to go, no problem to solve as we rest in the sensations of the body. We'll shift into visualization and start to move into our loving kindness practice. I like to start with connecting our inner experience to something that is joyful, that's beautiful, where we feel safe. And I often ask you to bring to mind some place in nature where you felt surrounded by beauty, you felt at home. It might be in your backyard, maybe around a fire, or maybe it's near water or in the mountains or a desert, wherever it might be, along the ocean or the lake. And just imagine yourself in that space, walking into that space, and there's a chair there. You can slowly walk towards the chair and take a seat when you're ready. So just painting the picture of that space, this beautiful, comforting, safe space, and having a seat there. Just beginning to take in the space through the eyes, noticing colors, patterns, textures, light, shadow. As you paint that picture in the mind, just any joy or beauty that you connect with, this inviting that beauty into the heart, breathing that in, connecting with this nature around us, which is really part of us, this body, human body, and this earth body, deeply entwined and interconnected. And we're open to that beautiful community that we are part of. This deep entanglement with the world of nature, nature of our body, the nature of the world. And recognizing that this beauty that we see outside is simply a reflection of the nature of the beauty inside us. And we just give gratitude for being in this circle of life, deep connection and community. Giving gratitude to this Mother Earth and this Mother who created this body here. And then maybe there's some sounds in the space. Maybe there's wind in the trees or sounds of water and crackling of a fire. The sounds of grasses blowing in the wind, sounds of birds, whatever it might be there. Just taking that in again into the heart space, feeling into that joy. And again, just having gratitude for the beauty of this place, this space. Having been honored with our presence in this space, in this place. And we'll move into the loving kindness phrases now as we open the heart. And we'll begin by just silently engaging these, opening up to these phrases towards ourselves, saying loving kindness towards this one here. May I be happy and joyful in this moment. May I be happy and joyful in this moment. May I be healthy in mind whatever that means for you. May I be healthy in body. May I be healthy in body. May I be healthy in spirit, in that sense of connection with all life. May I know inner peace in this moment. May I know peace in all my relationships. May I know peace in all my relationships. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from the causes of suffering. May I live with ease. May I be content in this moment. May I be happy and joyful. May I be healthy in mind. May I be healthy in body. May I be healthy in spirit. May I know inner peace. May I know peace in all my relationships. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from the causes of suffering. May I live with ease and be content. I live with ease and be content with this moment. And then just as we extend loving kindness to all beings, we imagine radiating out this loving kindness in front of us, behind us, above us, below us, to the left, right. And I'll walk us through and I'll tap the bell each time to kind of support that sense of radiating out this loving kindness. May all beings be happy and joyful. May all beings be healthy in mind, healthy in body, healthy in spirit. It's radiating out across this community here in Kalamazoo and Portage, across Michigan and North America, Canada, Central and South America, across the oceans, Asia and Europe and Africa and India, China, the Pacific, the Arctic, Antarctic, the whole planet just being immersed in loving kindness. May all beings know inner peace. Beings know peace in their relationships. Beings be free from suffering. Beings be free from the causes of suffering. Beings may I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering and live with ease. And just bringing the attention back into the belly now, into the breath. Dropping attention down through the legs, into the feet. Guiding that attention down into our Mother Earth. Feeling that depth of connection with our Mother. And giving gratitude for this breath that we take, the water we drink, the nourishments of our what we eat each day, the beauty of the natural and human world around us. And whatever benefit that maybe we touch today, just remembering these qualities are present within us as we open to them, we're carrying forward, extending kindness and curiosity towards ourselves and all our relationships. Letting go of personal judgments that can be so strong. And just resting in this open-hearted awareness of now. And let's take a few breaths, wiggling the toes, the fingers. And as you open the eyes, kind of keeping that peripheral awareness so that we don't immediately go to subject-object awareness, looking at objects, but there's that sense of inclusiveness of the whole, of the objects and the space in the room are all together. Thank you. A good 40-minute sit there, let's say. This goes longer than I anticipate. So any closing comments or questions? We have a few minutes, if not. And this, if you are signed up for the Zoom part, you will receive this recording. So if you want to use the practice as a guided practice, you can. And I think it will be on, we're putting them up on YouTube as well, right? So if you go to the UUCC Portage YouTube channel, you'll find these recordings as well. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. And next, I don't know, is it the 6th? I don't know the exact date in March, but 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be moving into the doing mode a bit more, which embodies the mindfulness practice. And we'll talk about that and continue on. via Zoom or in person. Yep. Thanks for everyone coming.
Thank you.